What seems like a misfortune today may be the very thing that saves you tomorrow. The sun dipped below the hills, casting a golden glow over the quiet village where Haran, a humble farmer, lived. He had witnessed many seasons, both bountiful harvests and heart-wrenching hardships. But today, fate was testing him like never before. One crisp morning, as Haran prepared to plough his field, his only horse broke free from its tether and disappeared into the wild. His neighbours quickly gathered at his doorstep, shaking their heads. "This is terrible, Haran. Without your horse, how will you farm? How will you survive?" they exclaimed. Haran sighed, brushing the dust off his weathered hands. Instead of weeping or complaining, he simply said, "Good or bad, who knows? Everything happens for a reason." The villagers muttered among themselves, puzzled at his composed response. Yet in that quiet moment, Haran's heart wrestled with silent questions, acknowledging the sting of loss only to gently release it into the flow of life. Days later, an astonishing sight unfolded. His lost horse returned, not alone, but accompanied by 10 strong wild horses. The once empty field now teemed with life. The villagers gasped in amazement, exclaiming, "Haran, you are the luckiest man in the village. Now you have more horses than anyone." Haran merely smiled and repeated, "Good or bad? Who knows?" Even as the villagers celebrated the apparent fortune, Haran recognized that every unfolding event was part of a larger, mysterious plan. Eager to help, Haran's only son attempted to tame one of the wild horses. In a sudden, chaotic moment, the beast bucked violently, throwing the young man into the air and breaking his leg upon impact. The villagers rushed to Haran's house with sympathetic faces. "Oh, Haran, we are so sorry. First your horse, now your son is crippled. This is the worst luck of all," they lamented. Seated beside his injured son, Haran's gaze remained steady as he calmly replied, "Good or bad, who knows?" The villagers left, frustrated by what they saw as indifference. Yet Haran's inner resolve was quietly growing. He understood that every moment, however painful, was woven into the tapestry of life. One serene evening, as Haran sat outside his modest hut, a group of monks passed by. At their center stood a serene figure draped in simple robes, Gautama Buddha himself. Haran, who had long admired Buddha's wisdom, bowed and asked, "Master, people call me foolish because I do not grieve misfortune or celebrate fortune. Am I wrong?" Buddha smiled warmly and motioned for Haran to sit beside him under a majestic banyan tree. "Tell me, Haran," Buddha began gently, "if you do not know the full story, how can you judge what is good or bad?" Haran listened intently as Buddha continued, "Life is like a river. It bends, it twists, it flows. What seems like an obstacle today may be the very thing that saves you tomorrow. The only true suffering comes from attachment to outcomes, to expectations." Lowering his gaze, Haran whispered, "But Master, how can one live without fear of misfortune?" Buddha placed a reassuring hand on the ancient trunk of the tree. "A storm may come tomorrow and this great tree may fall. Does the tree cry for its fate? It simply exists, rooted in the present. You must do the same." Weeks later, soldiers arrived in the village. The king had declared war and every able-bodied young man was being drafted. Mothers wept and fathers pleaded, but mercy was in short supply. When the soldiers reached Haran's house, they found his son still recovering, his leg too weak for battle. They left him behind. Now, the villagers gathered at Haran's doorstep and bowed in respect. "You were right all along," they admitted. "What we thought was your greatest misfortune actually saved your son's life." Recalling Buddha's words, Haran smiled softly and said, "Good or bad, who knows? Everything happens for a reason." Haran's heart was finally at peace. He had come to understand that life does not operate on simple human logic. Fortune and misfortune are merely names we assign to events we do not fully understand. Buddha had been right. Attachment is the root of suffering. And so Haran lived the rest of his days without fear or worry. He flowed with life like a river, trusting that whatever came his way was exactly what was meant to be. So, my friends, the moral of the story is, everything happens for a reason, even if we don't see it yet. Don't be too quick to judge a situation as good or bad. It may change. Let go of attachment to outcomes. The more we resist, the more we suffer. If Haran's journey has inspired you, take a moment to reflect on your own life. Comment below, what misfortune turned out to be a blessing for you? Spread this message of hope and wisdom to those who might need it. Subscribe for more stories that remind us that every twist of fate has its purpose. Remember, every challenge you face could be the start of a new, life-changing chapter. Trust the journey. Everything happens for a reason.